This happened in 2019. I was in my second year of college. At the time, I lived with two other girls in a town home, but they were back at their parents' house for the holidays. I work in healthcare and would be working Christmas that year. A bit of backstory. There used to be 4 of us living there, but one of our roommates had to move out due to issues with her boyfriend. He suffered from a condition called jackass. He was supposed to come every so often, but basically ended up living there. We told her that she had to kick him out after an incident where he got physical with her and verbally abusive with the rest of us. She wouldn't listen, and we told her that she would have to talk to the landlord. Long story short, she ended up moving out and left on bad terms with us. On another side note, I've also been in an abusive relationship, so I understand how things might have been for her. I tried my best for 2 years at that point to help her open her eyes and get her away from him, but you know how it goes. The entire situation was affecting everyone that lived there, and we didn't feel safe with him around, so she had to move out. It was Christmas Eve, and I had to work the next day, so I was getting ready for bed. I locked the doors, turned off all the lights, and went downstairs to the basement where my bedroom was. I was scrolling on my phone for about an hour. It was Christmas Day at this point. That's when I heard what sounded like chairs in the kitchen being moved. The kitchen is right above my bedroom. I thought maybe I was hearing the neighbors next door, as we share the same walls, and sometimes they can be loud. But I remember one of them texting me and asking me to bring in a package they were expecting, since they were gone. The noise was brief, so I just brushed it off. The next thing I knew, my bedroom door is being creaked open. In this moment, I get a flashback and remembered my second grade teacher telling us about the time someone had broken into her house, and she acted as if she was sleeping, so if they were just there to rob her, they wouldn't feel the need to hurt her. But my phone screen was lighting up my scared, jaw-dropped face, so I was unable to put on that facade. My bed faces directly to the door, so we're just looking right at each other. I was shitting myself, while the intruder had 1 foot in my bedroom, with the door cracked open. It felt like an eternity, but in reality it was probably only about 10 seconds. We were just staring at each other. He slowly closes my door. I just sit there in complete and utter shock. I could not make out what he looked like, as my eyes were still adjusting to the dark. All I could see was a backward baseball cap. I knew that I had to call the police, but my anxious ass knew that if I called, it would alert my parents. It was part of our phone plan. Me being dumb as hell, didn't want to worry them. I was also scared that he might still be in the house, and I didn't know what he would do if he heard me call. So I texted my boyfriend. Some random guy just broke into my house and came into my room. He immediately snapped me out of it and texted back, "Call the police." The dispatcher asked me if I felt comfortable to go unlock the front door for them, so they wouldn't have to break it down. I told her no way. I don't care if the door is broken. I'm not going up there alone. A couple minutes later, I see flashlights shining through my window. I hear the police knocking at the door and announcing themselves. Once they were inside, they asked me where I was. I came out of my room, and they escorted me outside. They told me to wait on the back porch while they searched the house. It was like a scene straight out of a horror movie. They didn't find anyone, and said that it looked like nothing had been taken, and that there were no signs of forced entry. My boyfriend came and stayed with me for the rest of that night, but I still couldn't sleep. I kept getting up to check every inch of the house. I placed chairs under the door handles on the front door, back door, and even my bedroom. The next day I informed our landlord what happened, but she refused to come out and change the locks, even when winter break was over. For the rest of the time we stayed there, The locks were never changed. I believe it was our old roommate's boyfriend. I think he had an extra key made for him at some point, because he was basically living there. But I don't understand why he didn't do anything to me, and he didn't take anything. If I'm wrong and it was somebody random, I don't know why they wouldn't have done what they intended. What were their intentions? Well, that could have been any number of things.
This is something that happened to a friend and I while home alone. Every time I tell this story, it still shocks everyone in the room. It was the summer of 2021, and I had lived with my mom at the time, who worked as an RN. Mind you, COVID was still rampant at the time, so that meant she had a lot of work to do when it came to treating patients. This resulted in her not being home for a lot of the time, which meant that I'd have the house to myself. One night, my mom was at work as usual, and I had been home alone, bored out of my mind. With nothing to really do, I call up my friend Chris and ask him if he wanted to come over. Now, I wasn't allowed to have anyone over, but being the young and rebellious teen I was, I of course didn't care. Since Chris lived in the next town over, it wasn't long before he arrived. We played basically all of the games I had, from COD all the way to GTA, while eating a bunch of snacks and pizza. As the night progressed, we started watching a few movies and sort of became bored. Not knowing what else to do, Chris recommends that we go upstairs and film some funny videos for YouTube. We didn't really know what to film, so I just started recording Chris doing backflips on the bed, thinking that it was good content. Keep in mind, we were both dumb teens, and this was the type of stuff we got a kick out of. I'd say we filmed each other doing the same thing when we decided to end it there and edit our footage on the computer. At this point, we're uploading the footage to the computer when I noticed something in one of the frames that I found odd. In the upstairs closet next to the bed, I could see something on the door frame. It only took me a few seconds to realize that what I was looking at was a hand wrapped around the closet door. "Chris, do you see that?" I said. As soon as I mentioned it, he had this look of shock on his face and came to the realization that we weren't alone in that room. As frightened as we were, we began to hear footsteps coming down the stairs. I grabbed Chris and whispered that we had to leave through the back door. As we're tiptoeing over to the back door, we see footsteps begin to slowly descend down the stairs. I couldn't tell who it was, but that didn't matter to us. What mattered was leaving the house and ensuring we were safe. Chris and I went out the back door and hid in the shed until we were sure the person was gone. 15 minutes felt like 15 hours as we stayed hidden in the shed waiting for this person to come out. Eventually, however, this person we had seen did end up coming out, and when I saw who it was, I couldn't help but say something. It was a woman in her mid-50s, and I instantly recognized her as my neighbor. I let out a sigh of relief when I saw her, and opened the shed to call out to her. However, as I made my presence known, she instantly booked it and ran back to her house. I was confused at first, as I wasn't sure why she was in my house or why she ran. Needless to say, we were both kind of relieved and went back inside to call my mom just to ask her if the neighbor was supposed to come by. There was a short pause before she answered, saying that she had no idea what I was talking about and that she was calling 911. Keep in mind that my mom barely knew my neighbor, so there was no reason she should have been here. 10 minutes go by, and I see multiple police cars pull into my neighbor's driveway. I then see her being taken into custody by the police, as well as 2 officers by my door. After I was greeted to the police officers, they then told me that my neighbor actually confessed to breaking into my home to steal my mom's jewelry. She knew my mom wouldn't be home, and I guess she saw it as an opportunity to steal. While this might not have been the scariest thing that's happened to me, it's definitely one I won't forget. My neighbor thankfully gave whatever she stole back and has since been in jail. 4 years ago, my girlfriend and I bought a house in the suburbs of Central Florida. It was at least 70 years old and was still in pretty good condition for a house that old. It was a nice 2-storied home in somewhat of a quiet residential area with no issues or anything like that. At first it seemed like the perfect house to start our lives in, and that was the case for about a month or so. That was until something happened one day that would forever break me. It was the middle of summer, and my girlfriend had gone to work while I had stayed home sick after going out to a club the other night. I didn't mind it though, as I could use the quiet, and I was trying to get over this illness as fast as possible. Anyway, my girlfriend had gone to work, leaving me to tend to the house. While I did enjoy the quiet, I knew I would miss her as she works in healthcare and would often work long hours. After she left, I rested for a good hour or so and had went downstairs to grab a snack before going back up again. Not knowing what to do, I just put on a movie to keep myself busy in hopes of falling asleep to rest more. At one point during the movie, I heard the tire screech of a car coming from outside. This was weird as there was almost no one that drives recklessly around here, so I could only assume it might have been an accident. I looked down from my bedroom window, and parked in my driveway is a white van I've never seen before. At this point, I'm shitting bricks right now as I wasn't sure who these people were or what they were doing here. Not even a minute later, I hear the frantic knocking on my front door, followed by several people yelling and screaming. I run down to the front door and look through the peephole and see these intimidating men pounding on my door. I speak into my Ring doorbell and ask them who they were and what they were doing on my property. The guy that was closest to the door responded by saying, "Don't play stupid with us. You know who we are, we want our money that you owe, and you're gonna give it to us." At this point, I'm extremely confused and terrified, and I don't want to open the door to confront them. I yell at them that I don't know who they are and to leave. However, this seemed to agitate them even more and began to pound on the door even harder. I knew it was only a matter of time before they would come in here and do God knows what to me. I took that time to call the police and explain everything. Right after I was telling the operator what was going on, I hear my window smash open and see them come in one by one. I knew they'd eventually find me, and so I did the only thing I could do. In the moment, it was risky as hell, but after gathering up the courage, I run down the stairs pleading for them to not kill me. However, instead of them reacting with anger or doing something potentially worse, they all just turned to look at each other with these confused faces. It was then where I could hear sirens from down the road, which was music to my ears. This caused them to get back in their van and flee. They didn't make it far though, as police had managed to find them about 2 blocks away. What police told me they learned shocked me to my core. Apparently, the people who had broken into my house were part of a major drug trafficking operation. One of their buyers had apparently stole $50,000 worth of cocaine and other goods and had smuggled them into their house. Whoever gave these people the address as to where this person might have lived had obviously given them the wrong address, resulting in them breaking into my house. The thought that I could have been killed that day will never leave me. I think the hardest part for me was facing these twisted people in court. I'll never forget them calling my name, walking past these criminals, giving me a look as if they wanted to kill me. My girlfriend and I tried to stay in that house to make the best of it, but it came to the point where we just couldn't. She would become paranoid, and I would often wake up from nightmares about it. It even came to a point where I started having thoughts about how other people from this gang would come back for us. This ultimately started to affect our mental health and even our jobs in a way. I'm not sure why this affected me so much, but we just couldn't live with it. A month later, we made the decision to sell the house and move over 2 states away to a safer area. I hope it stays that way. For context, I'm a female, and this happened just last week when I was in my first semester of college. I attended a community college right near my house as it was more convenient for me to get to and from school. Anyway, last week I had just gotten home from my first day of classes and threw myself onto my bed to relax. Being at school for long hours was enough to make me exhausted, and sleep was the only thing I was looking forward to. I get some shut-eye for a good hour or so when I woke to my dog Mia barking. This was weird as she almost never barks. I have a dachshund, big bark, small bite, and was the sweetest thing anyone could have, so when I heard her barking, I definitely thought it was strange. I dismissed it as her just barking at someone walking their dog or cat. However, it wasn't until her barks went from annoying to defensive, and that's when I get up to see what she was barking at. I could then see her barking into my parents' bedroom. She has her head up while barking as if she were barking at a person. The only problem was that there wasn't anyone there, even though she clearly knew something was there. At this point, I'm officially creeped the hell out while trying to get her to snap out of it. As I was about to approach her, she squeals back as if she was hurt or scared. I take a look at her and I see this minor gash above her stomach where I then covered it. Thankfully, there wasn't that much blood, but it still hurt her to say the least. I grabbed Mia and ran out of that house so fast to call the police. When my parents got home, I had told them about what had happened prior to them arriving. However, my parents are the type of people to take everything so lightly and lectured me about how I haven't been sleeping well enough and that it was all in my head. I know my story sounds crazy, but I saw it happen. I don't care if my parents believed me or not, as I know what I saw. Nothing has happened since, and my dog has gotten back to her normal self. This is by far the scariest thing I've ever seen, as I still can't find the words to explain it. I've had a few people tell me that it was just my dog being dumb, while others say it was something paranormal related. All of these theories were valid, but unfortunately, the second one seems more plausible. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but what I do know is that my dog obviously saw something in that room that I couldn't see, that terrified her.
I'm so glad that I don't live in apartments anymore, at least in the city I used to live in. I had a family across the hall from me, and they were okay people, except for their oldest son. He didn't say much, but when he did, he talked in a creepy kind of soft-spoken way like Michael Jackson, but more like he was on something. He had offered to help us move my wife's stuff into our apartment when her family showed up with the U-Haul, and her family, being trusted people, said yes. Now, I was a bit hesitant, but we did need the extra help. We somehow got to talking about a pair of pants that I no longer needed, and he's immediately like, "Yo, can I have them?" "Sure, whatever, dude." He stares at the pants like he found lost treasure. It was weird. As we're moving stuff, he then asks if there's anything else he can have. Creepy. I told him we'd let him know if something fit him that we don't want. After that, my wife knew firsthand just how weird he was. One time, he randomly knocked on our door and asked if we wanted to buy some candy. Fast forward a few months later, and some unrelated stuff in our apartment was making us uneasy, and we were seriously considering not renewing our lease. I knew it was time to leave when we were woken up at 6 a.m. one morning to hear the police shouting, "It's the police, open up! We have a search warrant!" They shout 2 more times, and then we hear a loud crack, and we saw through the people that they busted down a door. A week later, the family moved out. I hated that they left because other members of the family seemed pretty normal. Unfortunately, a week or two later, we see the older creepy-ass son hanging around our hallway. I had nodded to him on my way out to get the mail, and I then called my wife like, "He's still here? What the hell?" She says I should strike up a conversation to find out if his family's still here, and then act confused even though we saw them taking out furniture. So when I came back to the apartment, I had made eye contact, and I asked how his family's doing. "They're good," he responds. Cool, good to hear. I haven't seen y'all around lately. I thought I saw them moving stuff out. Wait, did y'all move?" "Yeah, they moved." I ended the conversation soon after and then went back into my own apartment. If they moved, why the hell is he hanging around our hallway? The only thing I can think of is that maybe the older son was into drugs, which would explain his weird behavior. Then the police caught him buying or selling drugs and busted down his family's place because it's his address. Maybe they didn't take him with them because they didn't want part of any of his lifestyle. It's really the only thing I can make out of it, and we only saw him a couple more times before we moved. We barely landed an opening in an apartment on the other side of the town, which is much safer. Our budget was real tight, but it was well worth it, and I'm so glad that I don't live in that area anymore. Peace, love, and be safe and vigilant out there, everyone. Please.
I was driving to work during the tail end of a massive snowstorm. Or sort of essential, food service, but for a college campus. Many of the students who live on campus don't have kitchen in their dorms, or many don't even drive, so lots of them wouldn't eat if we didn't open up. This made us travel up through some pretty insane conditions, but those kids wouldn't eat if we didn't show up. Even restaurants near campus closed during a level 3 snow emergency inside the city. Anyway, the informal policy for work for these situations is just to make an honest effort if you can, but don't risk your life. I'm one of the few there that has a 4-wheel drive, and I have the biggest vehicle, a crew cab truck. So I drive down to campus and then pick up workers who live nearby that wanted to come in. I'm rolling down the highway at a decent clip, only one lane that had been sort of plowed. I'd scoot over to the far left and kicked it into 4-wheel. Not many cars out. It's still snowing and things are going pretty smooth and I'm feeling good. Never fall for that overconfidence though. That's what brings on the trouble. Once you're confident, get relaxed, and after that it's all over. You stop making decisions and start reacting. That's when you forfeit control. I'm doing about 40 miles per hour when I notice a pair of headlights coming up behind me. Faster than they should. It has to be an emergency vehicle, right? I couldn't really tell. I signaled to move over to the middle lane, just in case they're starting to ease over. The headlights are getting closer, way faster than I'm comfortable with. It's close enough now that I can tell it's a big, lifted SUV. Now my farm truck is pretty big, but I'm not keen on wrecking it, and I certainly don't want to tangle with something that's that big in this weather. I assume it has 4-wheel drive as well, but what a jackass. There's no reason to be driving this fast on ice and snow. I let off the pedal and start inching to the far right lane, just about the time he's going to overtake me, just as we're heading onto a bridge. Something went wrong for the guy. That ice got him and he started fishtailing. I'm ever so gingerly toeing the brake, trying to slow the best I can without risking the same fate for myself. I know without a doubt in my mind, this driver is a lost cause, maybe even a fatality. I'm trying to create as much distance as possible when he collides with something. Crashes in the snow have a nasty habit of pulling the cars around them into the mix as well. There's just too many extra factors with all the sliding and the embankments. The SUV loses all traction, spins, and goes sliding over across my lane, missing me by inches. Windshield facing windshield. It was close enough that we locked eyes for a split second, and I could see the terror in them. Then he spun away from me, into the darkness and off the road. He was exactly what I expected. Young, either arrogant or ignorant to how to drive in the snow. Maybe there was an emergency somewhere, but who knows. We'd both just crossed the bridge as this happened. He went flying off the highway right where the guardrail ended, sailing into some trees. I saw the branches shake and the snow fall with a whoosh, then nothing but the faint glow of the taillights. Now I had to call this idiot in, and I can't tell you how common it is for some dummy driver to send their car sailing off a roadway, snow or shine, only to never be found. Calling it in is the move, because the person that just crashed might be unconscious and there's no way to get to them. They could wake up later with no memory of where they were, and even if they do remember, sometimes the crash can rearrange the contents of a car. Their phone might not be where they left it. Either way, that dumbass not only wrecked driving like an idiot, but almost came inches from taking me with him. I saw a couple of cars behind me slowing down and pulling off, so I called 911 and kept right on to work. My butt cheeks were clenched so tight, I thought I was going to have to get someone to pry me off the truck seat with a crowbar. It's not always the ice and snow that'll get you into trouble. It's the damn idiots you share the roads with, who don't know how to drive safe in it at all.